Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am bringing you a comprehensive beginner's guide to Path of Exile in advance of the Secrets of the Atlas expansion and Mercenaries of Tarthas Challenge League. Path of Exile is a massive game with exceptional depth, customization, and wealth of content. The goal of this guide is not to tell you how to play the game or what build to play, but rather to explain the core concepts of the game and useful tips, as well as brief descriptions of all the different types of content so that you have an idea of what you are looking at when you encounter it. There are many build and leveling guides that exist, and almost all of them will assume that you know the contents of this video. There is a lot to go through and I will go fast, so there are timestamps in the video description, as well as useful links to wiki pages for the content I explain. But let's start with the basics. When you go to create a character, you will have to select a league to join. It is highly recommended to play in the current challenge league by selecting the appropriate banner, which is Settlers at the time of this recording. There is a hardcore version where your character only has a single life. There are toggles for solo self-found, an optional mode in which you are unable to trade with other players, and Ruthless, a mode with extreme item scarcity meant for the most degenerate masochists. Do yourself a favor and do not play Ruthless. Standard is full of 12 plus years of items from previous leagues, a much smaller player base, and does not contain the new league content. So let's select the Settlers League. Here you can select your character class between Templar, Shadow, Marauder, Ranger, Duelist, Witch, and a 7th class called Scion, which you unlock if you are new to the game through the campaign. Once you pick a class and give it a name, the game begins. There are some simple tutorials at the start of the game. Use left click to move and pick up the weapon on the beach. After killing the zombie, a skill gem is dropped. Skill gems are items that give you abilities in Path of Exile, but you need to put it into a socket, which is in the weapon you picked up. The skill gem comes with a description of what it does, and if it is an attack, it will specify which weapon types are required to use the skill. Spells have no specific weapon requirements. The skill is added to your skill bar, and you can use right-click to use the skill. If you want to move the skill to a different keybind, left-click on one of the skill slots in the bottom right, and select the skill you want on that button. And here you may also select whether or not you want the skill to lock you in place when you use it. At this point, you should no longer need your basic attack. It is common practice to change the left click to move only at this point to make sure you are always able to reposition yourself. Skills cost mana to use, but if you run out of mana, you will use your basic attack instead. Flasks are very important in Path of Exile, and you begin with 2 life flasks and a mana flask. Flasks consume a number of charges when you use them, and they can vary on maximum number of charges. You can restore flask charges by killing enemies. As you progress down the beach, you will find a chest which contains another gem, a support gem. Support gems augment the power of skill gems connected by linked sockets. The gems you get are different based on the character class you selected. Most support gems have a mana cost multiplier applied to the skill's mana cost they are linked to. To the left of the gem description shows which of your socketed skills they can apply to. This is determined by the gem tags that appear at the very top of the gem descriptions. These tags are important to pay attention to, as they will tell you how you can scale the damage of those skills. You can remove a gem by right-clicking the socket it is in. At the end of the beach is a unique enemy noted by the orange text and the large health bar. Fighting Hillock will test your ability to use your life and mana flasks to stay alive and deal damage with your skill gems. When defeated, a bunch of items drop on the ground, and we have gained a level. Which brings us to the passive tree, which scares a lot of people, but it really is not as bad as you think. There's a search bar, it is fairly simple to make changes, and at first you only have a couple options. I will explain the passive tree in further detail in a bit. Now is a good time to talk about some UI options. Between your health globe and flasks is a menu button which will show you the keybinds for the various menus to open the options panel, or from the menu that appears when you press escape. There are lots of settings here, but we want the UI tab at the top. There are a bunch of options here to tailor the game to your liking. adjusting minimap transparency and zoom, screen shake options. Here you can toggle items to always show their sockets, which is very helpful, and add notches to sockets for those who are colorblind. You can toggle text that shows the numerical value of your life and mana. You can add small life bars to yourself, allies, or enemies, change the size and color of your cursor, and some in-game chat settings. On the Input tab, you can make changes to the keybinds if necessary to meet your preferences. Now, when entering the first town, you may notice a handful of other players also in the town. You will only see other players in town areas unless they are in a party with you. In every town, there is access to your stash to store items, a waypoint to travel between zones, and a couple NPCs that provide quests and sell items. Entering a town will also restore all of your flask charges. Upon completing the first quest from Tarkleigh, you will be offered a selection of new skill gems, but you will also need a socket of the appropriate color to put it into. Tarkleigh sells weapons and equipment which may give you the color combination of linked sockets you are looking for. After choosing a gem, you still have access to the other gems from the vendor Nessa, providing an even larger selection. Every quest that offers you gems will add more gems in the vendor. These first gems cost a scroll of wisdom to purchase. Any gold you find will have a different purpose. Wisdom scrolls are the most common currency, but you also need them to identify magic or rare items you may find. Nessa also sells wands, accessories, flasks, and currency orbs. Here you can buy a portal scroll for 3 wisdom scrolls, an orb of transmutation for 7 portals, an orb of augmentation for 4 transmutes, and an orb of alteration for 4 augments. These are all common currencies that have uses to modify items. They can be found from killing monsters, and there are many more types of currency orbs. The NPC Bessel in town will allow you to spend your gold to gamble for items or respec passives on your passive tree. I cannot show this here as this feature comes in the upcoming patch, but this is what gold is for. Each town in the campaign has NPCs that will perform these 3 functions: weapons and armor, accessories and gems, and spend gold for gambling and passive respecs. You can also sell items to these vendors for currency shards. A normal item with no mods on it will give a scroll fragment. An unidentified item will give you transmutation shards, but if you identify that item, it will give alteration or alchemy shards depending on what mods roll on the item. You may want to consider not only the mods on the item, but also the sockets before selling them. Now let's move further into the game. As you gain experience, skill gems can be leveled up, increasing their damage, and other mods on the skill, often increasing the mana cost. Support gems level as well, but there is no change to their mana modifiers. When you find a portal scroll, you may open your inventory and right-click it to return to town. There is a keybind you can set to do this automatically, provided you have a portal scroll in your inventory. When you find a waypoint, it will activate automatically when you get close enough to it. Waypoints can be used to traverse to any other waypoint you have activated. I found a bunch of items from killing monsters, including a few magic and rare items. Normal items have no mods on them at all. Magic items can have 1 to 2 mods on them, 1 prefix and 1 suffix. A rare item can have up to 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. There are different pools of mods for prefixes and suffixes for each item. For example, life or defense mods on an armor piece will always be prefixes, whereas attributes or resistance mods will be suffixes. There is a 4th rarity of items called uniques that come with unique properties that can be very powerful. There are over 1,000 different unique items in the game. There are some item bases that have implicit mods that will always come with that item. Pressing Alt while hovering over an item will show you a more detailed description of what mods are on the item. There are increasing level requirements for each new tier of a mod type, with Tier 1 being the highest. Items can also have a quality up to 20% using blacksmith's whetstones or armorer's scraps. This will increase the base stats on an item, but will have no effect on the mods rolled on the item. These basic currency orbs can be used to modify items. A transmutation orb can be used to upgrade a normal item to a magic item. An augmentation orb can be used to add a mod to a magic item with only 1 mod. An alteration orb can be used to reroll the mods on a magic item. A chance orb can upgrade an item to a random rarity. An alchemy orb can turn a normal item into a rare item. A chaos orb can reroll a rare item to one with new mods. You can control-click one of the vendors to instantly bring up the sell window. Selling a bunch of items to the vendor will give an assortment of currency shards. There are a lot of vendor recipes you can use to get guaranteed outcomes. If you need more wisdom scrolls, you can sell a portal scroll to get one, but you can also sell a transmute or alteration to get 4 wisdom scrolls. If you sell 3 of the same type of life or mana flask, you will receive the next tier of flask. Selling an iron ring with a red skill gem will give a ruby ring with fire resistance, green gem for topaz, and blue gem for sapphire. There are a lot of these you can read on the wiki, but 2 notably important ones are items that have red, blue, and green sockets all linked together will give you a chromatic orb used to reroll the colors of sockets on an item. An item that has 6 sockets can be sold to give 7 jeweler's orbs that are used to reroll the number of sockets. 6 socket items cannot be found until much later in the game. Jeweler's orbs are used to reroll the number of sockets on an item. Orbs of fusing are used to reforge the links between sockets. Low-level items can have a maximum of 3 sockets. Above item level 25, items can have 4 sockets, and item level 50 is required before 6 sockets are possible on an item. Only body armors and 2-handed weapons can have more than 4 sockets. One-handed weapons and shields always have a maximum of 3 sockets. The attribute requirements on an item indicate which color sockets are more likely to roll on that item. You can control-click an item to quickly move it from your inventory to the vendor window or stash tab and vice versa. To split a stack of items, hold shift and left-click the stack and a slider will appear to select the number you want. You can use numerical keys to specify this number as well. If you pick up a stack of items and hold shift, you can left-click to place a single item from the stack. You can move many stacks of the same item at once by holding Control, Shift, and right-clicking one of the stacks. When using a currency item, you can hold shift to continue using that currency with subsequent clicks. That covers most of the nitty-gritty stuff, but there's still a lot to go through. Similar to items, there are also 4 rarities of enemies. Normal enemies are the basic enemies. Magic enemies can have mods that augment the damage or defenses of the basic enemies, and they have a blue glow to them, making them easy to identify. Rare enemies can have many more mods on them, including mods specific to rare enemies that grant special abilities. Unique enemies have specific names and come with special abilities unique to that individual enemy. Enemies can have resistances to certain types of damage, indicated by little icons that appear below the enemy's nameplate, such as the lightning bolt shown here, indicating this enemy is resistant to lightning damage. Debuffs you apply to an enemy like Shock or Chill will show up below the enemy's nameplate. Buffs and debuffs on your character will appear in the top left of the screen. The top row for buffs and the bottom row for debuffs. You can mouse over these to see what they do. Now let's dig deeper into the passive tree. The passive tree is massive, and each different class starts in a different section of the same tree, which can make for truly unique build creations. The tree is roughly divided into 6 sections. The top section is the intelligence area, the bottom left is strength, and the bottom right is dexterity. In between them are the hybrids, strength intelligence in the top left, dexterity intelligence in the top right, and strength dexterity in the bottom middle. This trichotomy is present in multiple facets of the game, being defenses, attribute requirements for gems and gear, and charges. All things are placed in relevant areas of the tree, and there is a search bar to find anything specific you are looking for. Say totems, mines, bows, swords, and war cries, for a few examples. There are 5 types of passive tree nodes: small passives, notable passives, masteries, keystones, and jewel sockets. Small passives are how you path around the tree and are usually less powerful versions of the larger notable passives nearby. Notable passives are much more powerful nodes that give more unique effects and in most cases open up masteries. When you take a notable passive in any cluster of passives, you may then put a passive into the mastery relative to that cluster at its center. Masteries let you pick from a list of options for that specific type of mastery. When you hover over a mastery on the tree, nearby masteries of the same type will also be highlighted. If you wish to take more mastery options from the list, you must travel to an additional cluster of that type for each one. You can spec into many different masteries if you path into these clusters. The largest nodes on the tree are called Keystones. These passives have very unique effects that can be a foundation for how you build your character. Some of them are so powerful that they come with a distinct downside to taking them, like Resolute Technique, making sure your attacks always hit regardless of accuracy, but you can no longer deal critical strikes. Chaos Inoculation, making your maximum life 1, but making you immune to chaos damage, forcing you to build heavily into Energy Shield. Or Iron Reflexes, converting all of your evasion rating into armor. On that note, let's talk a bit about defenses. You can see your defenses by opening the character sheet and selecting the Defenses tab. There are 3 main types of defenses: Armor, Evasion, and Energy Shield, adhering to Strength, Dexterity, and Intelligence. Armor is used to mitigate physical damage, but has diminishing returns against larger hits. Evasion allows you to not be hit by attacks, but still leaves you vulnerable to spells. Energy Shield is a buffer above your life that requires you to not take damage for a period of time before it will recharge. Energy Shield can also scale to higher values than it is possible to scale your life pool, but chaos damage bypasses Energy Shield. There are also hybrid gear pieces combining 2 of the defensive types and are relative to the hybrid sections of the passive tree. So a piece of gear that has armor and evasion will have an attribute requirement of both strength and dexterity. Armor and Energy Shield is the Strength Intelligence hybrid, and Evasion Energy Shield is the Dexterity Intelligence hybrid. Beyond the different gear base types, there are other scalable ways of mitigating damage, like Attack and Spell Block, which unlike Evasion, counts as being hit, leaving you prone to stuns, but allows you to avoid the damage. Spell Suppression is a mod on the passive tree that can also roll on evasion-based gear, which gives you a chance to take 50% of the damage from spells. Elemental resistances are nearly a mandatory facet of Path of Exile and naturally cap out at 75%. Damage from enemies in the game is balanced around you having capped resistances. Chaos resistance is also valuable, but not to the extent that elemental resistances are. There are many avenues by which you can get resistances, including the passive tree and gear, but you can also increase your maximum elemental resistances up to a maximum of 90%. Increases to maximum resistances are much more present in the strength section of the passive tree. Another powerful defensive tool comes from endurance charges, which is the charge type relative to the strength section of the passive tree. The dexterity region has frenzy charges, and the intelligence region has power charges. There are various ways to acquire charges, be it from skill gems or other means, but they can be very powerful. You start with a maximum of 3 of each type of charge with the ability to increase the maximum number of charges via the passive tree. Charges give a passive buff while you have them. Endurance charges give 4% physical and elemental damage reduction per charge. Frenzy charges give increased attack and cast speed as well as more damage per active charge. Power charges give increased critical strike chance. There are many unique items that can give further bonuses to charges as well. The last thing to mention about the passive tree are jewel sockets. Beginning in Act 3, you will be able to start finding jewels. There are 3 types: Crimson, Viridian, and Cobalt, red, green, and blue. You should be seeing the trend here. Jewels are craftable items that you can socket into your passive tree. Each type of jewel has its own pool of mods, but there is a lot of crossover, and jewels are limited to a maximum of 4 mods. Getting a jewel well suited to your build is a bit more difficult, but well-rolled jewels become some of the strongest passive tree nodes you can get and enable a next level of passive tree optimization. Halfway through Act 1 in the lower prison, you will encounter the first Trial of Ascendancy. These are short trapped gauntlets that you must complete in order to enter the Lord's Labyrinth in Act 3 to ascend your character. There are 6 trials that must be completed, each featuring a different type of trap that you may encounter in the labyrinth. There is 1 trial in Act 1, 2 in Act 2, and 3 in Act 3. There are some skill gems that provide a passive effect at the cost of reserving a portion of your mana. Auras provide a buff not only to you, but also nearby allies and minions. Heralds, however, will only affect you and have additional conditional effects based on the different types of herald. More powerful auras become available in Act 3, but they come with a much higher reservation cost. There are mana reservation efficiency nodes on the passive tree that will allow you to reserve more auras on your mana. In Act 2, there is a mission to deal with 3 bandits, which each contain amulet pieces required to progress through the later part of the act. You are given the option to help one of the bandits by removing the other 2 in exchange for their amulet piece, as well as a permanent buff to your character based on which one you helped, being movement speed, life, or elemental resistances. However, if you kill them all, you will be given an extra passive point, which is almost always more valuable, but this is not made apparent in the game. In Act 2, you will encounter a corruption altar that allows you to corrupt an item, modifying it unpredictably. Corrupting an item can have a few different outcomes. It could completely reroll the item, add an implicit modifier to the item, change the color of sockets to white, allowing any gem to be put into it, or do nothing at all, still leaving the item corrupted. Corrupted items can no longer be modified with basic currency orbs. Just be prepared that corrupting a valuable item may break it completely, or may make it stronger. Vol orbs are another currency type found in the game that will perform the same function as this altar. In the Northern Forest in Act 2, you can find an area called the Dread Thicket. For returning players, there is nothing of value in this area, but if this is your first time playing the game, the Dread Thicket is your first opportunity to claim a hideout. Here you can find the Lush Hideout. If you enter it and fully clear all of the monsters inside of it, you can claim it for yourself. There are additional hideouts you can find in each following act of the campaign. Talking to Helena in the Act 2 town will allow you to select a hideout and shows you where the others can be acquired. There are also special hideouts you can purchase from the NTX shop. You may then travel to your hideout from any waypoint in the lower right corner of the world map. Having access to a hideout gives you access to a crafting bench, allowing you to craft modifiers onto items provided there are open slots for mods on that item. Remember, a rare item can only have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. Different mods are available for prefixes and suffixes. Putting an item into the bench will show you which mods can be crafted onto that item. This is a great way to add missing resistances to gear where you are weaker. Certain amounts of different currency orbs are required for each craft shown on the bench. At the very beginning of Act 3, you will find your first crafting recipe, which will allow you to craft movement speed onto boots with the crafting bench in your hideout. You will find these crafting recipes all over the rest of the campaign, so be sure to look out for them. There are minimap icons, so they are not too hard to miss. These crafting recipes will need to be acquired in each fresh league to build out your crafting bench, but the hideouts you only need to get once and you permanently have them on your account. To ascend your character, you must complete the Lord's Labyrinth made available in Act 3 once you have found all 6 of the Trials of Ascendancy. Upon entry, you can see that there are 4 levels of the labyrinth at different levels, and you can see where to find the trials in order to access those labs. The lab is a series of areas filled with traps, gauntlets, and other secrets with 3 boss fights you must complete by the end. At the entrance and exit to each area is a map to show you where you are and how many exits there are to the zone. These get more complex at higher levels, and you must complete the run in one go. If you die, you have to start over at the beginning. However, the labyrinth is not as random as most other zones. Every 24 hours, the layout of each labyrinth is reset with new possibilities, which might mean different zone layouts and combinations of boss mechanics. There are 3 different variations of the boss. 1 dual-wielding swords, 1 with a sword and shield, and 1 with a 2-handed mace. The first 2 boss encounters will each have an additional mechanic in it that gives Izara buffs in the subsequent fights, or you can disable them while fighting the boss. Some rooms have forgotten reliquaries that will aid you in disabling the additional mechanics. But if you defeat Izaro with all of the buffs from the extra mechanics enabled, he will drop an additional treasure key at the end. There are some hidden rooms openable with switches that have dark shrines behind them that will give you a buff for the rest of the labyrinth. Upon beating Izaro for the 3rd time, he will drop any treasure keys with a lot of loot as well. The treasure keys can be used in the next room to open treasure chests. In this room is also the Altar of Ascendancy, where you can choose one of 3 Ascendancy classes for your character, which will give very distinct and powerful buffs. Each of the following labyrinths will give you more points to spec into these Ascendancy trees. That is not all at the end of the labyrinth, though. Here you will also find the Divine Font, which will allow you to make modifications to skill gems. Many skill gems have transfigured versions which will change how the skill functions. The labyrinth is how you would acquire those gems. Choosing to transform a skill gem will give you 3 options of transfigured gems of the same gem color. You can instead choose to add quality to a skill gem, giving it extra effects that can be seen when holding Alt while hovering over a skill gem. You may choose to run the labyrinth repeated times in order to find a specific transfigured skill gem, or max out quality on the gems you are using. Higher level labyrinths will give more options and even additional uses of the Divine Font. If you do not want any of the 3 transfigured gems offered, you may get back the gem you put in by clicking the X on the window. Starting in Act 4, you may start finding Divination Cards. These cards were all designed by supporters of the game, and upon completing a full stack of cards, they can be turned in to give the reward specified on the card. There are many different types of Divination Cards that give a very wide selection of different rewards. These are often a target by players to get a specific item by farming the zones where specific cards can drop. These sets of cards can be turned in to the Act 4 NPC Tasuni to get the rewards, or from Lily in your hideout after completing a quest in Act 6. In Act 5, you are given a quest reward of a utility flask. You likely will have found some utility flasks prior to this point, along with other types of flasks called Tinctures. Utility flasks use charges the same way life and mana flasks do, but these will give you a buff for the duration of the flask. There are many types of utility flask that can give you resistances, armor, evasion rating, or movement speed, to name a few. You can increase the quality of flasks, and there are even currency orbs that will cause flasks to be used automatically under certain conditions. Tinctures work in a different way and only work with melee attacks. Once activated, they will provide a buff to you while stacking mana burn, causing you to degen mana per stack. When you run out of mana, the tincture will deactivate and has a cooldown before it can be used again. Upon defeating the final boss in Act 5 and Act 10, you will receive a 30% penalty to all of your resistances, making it harder to cap them up to their maximum. However, by this point, you will be able to acquire gear with higher values of resistances on them, so it really is not that bad. But this could leave you particularly vulnerable to chaos damage without any investment in chaos resistance. It is not uncommon that players have negative 60% chaos resistance upon completing the campaign. Then in the endgame seek to improve this when better gear is available. Beginning in Act 6, after defeating certain bosses, you will begin to unlock Pantheon powers. You can have one major Pantheon power and one minor Pantheon power active at a time. These will allow you to choose small buffs for your character, given the available options, and they can be upgraded to be much stronger in the endgame. Speaking of the endgame, starting in Act 8, you may begin to start finding maps. Maps are the key component of the endgame in Path of Exile. Maps are craftable items using currency orbs to add mods to the enemies in the zone specified by that map. The more mods on the map, the more dangerous and rewarding the enemies will be in that zone. Once entering maps, or the endgame, it will quickly become apparent how much the campaign is a mere appetizer for the real game that exists at the endgame. For many players, reaching maps is where the game actually begins. After completing Act 10 and entering the epilogue, you will find an NPC named Kirac, who will offer you a map and instruct you to enter it and slay the boss by placing the map in a nearby map device. After completing this map and returning to Kirac, you'll be shown the Atlas, which is how you chart your progress through the endgame. Most of the Atlas is not visible at this point, and you will have to push through to higher tiers of maps to reveal it. Completing bonus objectives in maps will give you Atlas passive points to augment the content available in the maps you run. This allows you to specify which type of content you wish to run. You will have received small teasers of the available content throughout the campaign, and I will go through all of these types of content shortly. To get these passive points, the bonus requirements for Tier 1 to 5 maps, or white maps, is to defeat the boss in each different map tile set while the map is magic or higher, meaning the map must have mods added to it using your currency if it does not already have mods. Tier 6 to 10 maps, or yellow maps, require you to defeat the boss of a rare map for each of the tile sets. Tier 11 to 16 maps, or red maps, require you to complete corrupted rare maps to receive Atlas passive points. There are also unique maps to find and complete, as well as other encounters and bosses along the way that will also give Atlas passive points. A new type of item will begin dropping in maps called Scarabs. Scarabs have a wide variety of different types and are used to add or augment additional content in your maps. These Scarabs can be placed in the map device with your map to use them alongside that map. Scarabs are very fun to use and give you even more control over the types of in-game content you want to run. The introduction of Scarabs is the perfect segue to talk about stash tabs. Path of Exile is a free-to-play game, but upon entering the in-game, you are going to run out of space to store items very fast, and the amount of different items increases substantially. This is where you are likely to pay the real price of the game in the form of stash tabs to store all of the things you are going to find. I will explain what each of these tabs are and what they are able to do. Stash tabs are acquirable through the MTX shop using points from purchasing supporter packs, which often come with a lot of very cool things on their own. It is also worthwhile to note that stash tabs go on sale every 3 weekends. You start with 4 standard stash tabs, which can be upgraded to premium stash tabs. Premium stash tabs can be renamed and recolored, and can then be used to list items for trade to other players. The 3 most important stash tabs are the Currency Stash to hold all of your currency orbs, the Fragment Stash, which holds all of your Scarabs and many other bossing materials, and the Map Stash, which neatly organizes and stores all of your maps and can hold up to 72 of each individual map type. The other types of stash tabs are not as mandatory to play in the in-game, but they're still very nice to neatly organize the various items they hold. The Divination Card tab will hold all of your Divination cards, allowing you to stack up to 5,000 of each card, shows you the art of each card, and even has placeholders for the cards you do not have. The Essence tab holds all of your essences, and allows you to easily upgrade them. The Delve tab holds fossils and resonators from Delve. The Blight tab holds oils and blighted maps with a slot to easily apply oils to items. The Ultimatum tab holds catalysts and inscribed ultimatums. The Delirium tab holds simulacrum splinters, delirium orbs, and maps with delirium effects applied. The Gem tab can hold up to 500 gems and gives you easy means to sort them. The Flask tab can store up to 500 flasks, where a normal tab can only hold up to 64. The last of the unique stash tabs is the Unique Stash tab, which can hold 1 of each unique item in the game and is great for collecting unique items. To get all of the unique stash tabs and upgrade the 4 basic tabs requires 830 points at full price, and once again I will mention they go on sale over the weekend every 3 weeks. The only other tab I have not mentioned is the Quad tab, which has the storage space of 4 normal stash tabs. Players really like these to dump many items in and then sort through all of the items later once it is full. Any stash tabs purchased are on your account permanently and can be used on every character you create in every league you play in from there on out. And compatible tabs are also usable in Path of Exile too. I personally have a large amount of stash tabs I have acquired over the 12 years I have played Path of Exile. I mostly play in solo self-found, so rather than trading items to other players, I end up hoarding tons of items for many possible builds over the course of a league. But now I will teach you a bit about trading. There are 2 ways to trade items. The first being using premium stash tabs to list items for trade. Right-clicking the name of any premium stash tab, you can set the tab to be public, allowing the trade API to find items in that stash. You can then choose to price items individually or set a price for the entire tab, which will change the name of the tab to the buyout price chosen. If you choose to price items individually, you can then right-click an item in that stash and set a price for it. The special stash tabs can also be made public and prices set to any items inside of it. The other way to trade items is with the Currency Exchange, introduced in the Settlers League, now accessible in town when you reach Act 6. Here you can select an item that you want from a list of all the possible things in the game. Let's say I want a Titanic Scarab. Then I can select the I Have tab to choose what I want to trade for the Scarabs. The most common currencies used for trading are Divine Orbs and Chaos Orbs. I will select Chaos Orbs. I can now see the cheapest ratio set for trade, and I can also hover over the market ratio at the top and see how many Titanic Scarabs are available for trade, and the ratio they are listed at. These are listings set up in the opposite way, where players set that they wanted Chaos Orbs and that they have Titanic Scarabs, and set the ratio they would sell them. If I want to buy the Scarabs, I have to lock in the values I want by clicking in the quantity boxes. I can then click Place Order, and there is a gold cost required to make this trade. Since I chose the ratio that was listed, I will receive the Scarabs instantly and can take them out of the window. Not everything can be traded with the currency exchange, though. If I want to trade for a specific piece of gear, I will have to use the trade website. If you go to the Path of Exile website and click the large trade button at the top of the page, it will take you to the trade website, or you can just enter pathofexile.com/trade in your search bar. Here you can select the league you are playing in, and there are tons of filters you can use to search for nearly any item in the game. Let me set up a basic trade that many people might often do. I want a pair of boots with life, movement speed, and let's say I need at least 35 fire resistance. In the item category dropdown, I will select boots. Then on the right, under stat filters, I will add the mods I want. Then specify that I need at least 35 fire resistance, and make sure above I am looking for a player that is currently online. Then I scroll to the bottom and hit search. I found a lot of items. Here I can sort by any of the mods I searched for by clicking the gray mod underneath the item, so I can sort by life, so I can see the highest life at the top. Now, since I chose the pseudo life mod in my stat filters, it is showing me the total life gained, including from strength on the item. And these boots are really expensive. I can scroll down and might find a pair of boots that cost less, or go back up and refine my search more. Let's specify that I want at least 25 movement speed and 80 life, then search again. This looks better. It is important to pay attention to the attribute requirements and the level requirements of the items as well. These are also things you can specify. Another consideration are the socket colors you need on this item. It will be harder to get red or blue sockets on evasion boots. If you find a pair of boots you like, for a price you are willing to pay, you can hit the direct whisper button to automatically send them a message in-game that you want to buy that item. Then, hopefully, you will receive a party invite or a message back from them to tell you to wait. If you receive a party invite, you travel to their hideout, wait for them to initiate a trade, place the requested currency in the trade window, make sure the item they placed is the item you requested, and accept the trade. Most often, you will then be quickly kicked from the party, sometimes with a message thanking you for the trade. Lots of players have macros set up for these things and want the interaction to take as little time as possible. Some players are assholes. Some people try to scam players, and some people will ignore you entirely with no explanation. There is no avoiding that with this trading system. I personally avoid this entirely by playing solo self-found. On the trade site, there is also a bulk item exchange tab at the top to trade larger amounts of specific items. In most cases, these types of trades are made more easily with the currency exchange in-game. But sometimes you can find better deals this way, as well as avoiding the gold cost requirement for making those trades. It becomes much easier through practice, and trading items is very prevalent in Path of Exile. There are a couple more useful things I have yet to mention. Through the campaign, if you want to reset a zone to clear through it again, you can do so by control-clicking the instance to the zone or the waypoint on the world map to make a new instance. There is a vendor recipe to manufacture Chaos Orbs by selling a full set of rare gear. This means a helmet, chest, gloves, boots, belt, 2 rings, amulet, and a 2-handed weapon or 2 one-handed weapons. All of these items must be rare and above item level 60. If any of the rare items is below item level 60, you will get a chance orb. If all items are above level 75, you will instead get a regal orb. So this is most applicable in the last acts of the campaign and white maps. If all of the items are unidentified, you will instead receive 2 chaos orbs. There are console commands you can enter into the chat window, like /deaths to tell you how many times you have died, /kills to see how many enemies you have killed, /played to see how long you have played that character, or /passives will show you the status of all the passive skills you can get from the campaign to make sure you didn't miss any. Lastly, I will mention loot filters. You may notice that there are a lot of items that drop in the game that you have no use for. These can be hidden by using a loot filter, and certain items can be made to stand out more. I will show you how to set up the most popular loot filter in the tools section of this video using Neversink's Filter Blade website. For the remainder of this video, I will be using my personal loot filter while explaining the game's additional content. I will not be explaining best practices with regard to the content in the game, but mostly what it is, how it functions, and what you can gain from it. This is designed for players who have not played the game and may have no idea what they are looking at, let alone what might come from these things. I will try to go in the order things can first be encountered through the campaign, but also give a broader scope of the depth of that content so players might know what they may gain from each bit of content. The first content you will encounter will be that of the new Challenge League mechanic, which will be present in every zone through the campaign and every map. The upcoming Challenge League is Mercenaries of Tarthus, alongside the Secrets of the Atlas expansion. You will meet mercenaries, which give you the option to hire them, take a piece of their gear, or exile them to prevent them from showing up for a few zones, provided you can best them in combat. They can be a source of powerful gear, including new unique items, but also can have new Tarthan skill gems that you can take and use yourself and build your character around. Finding a strong NPC ally to fight alongside you could prove very valuable as you fight your way through Rayclast. We will all be experiencing this content for the first time when the League releases. The next piece of content you are likely to find are shrines. Shrines are fairly common and pretty simple to understand. A shrine will be surrounded by a few packs of enemies that are buffed by the shrine. You can run in and take the shrine for yourself, giving you the shrine buff for a duration. There are some defensive shrines, such as the Massive Shrine, that increase your character size, max life, and AoE, as well as offensive shrines, including the Diamond Shrine, which makes all hits you deal critical strikes. But that means enemies surrounding the shrine will always crit you before you take the shrine from them. There are special shrines available in endgame that can only appear through the use of Scarabs in the map device. Essences appear as rare enemies trapped in crystals containing an essence, which will grant the enemy special abilities when you break it open, freeing the enemy. Upon defeating the enemy, they will drop the essence empowering them. The essence can be used to craft a piece of gear, guaranteeing a specific modifier. The essence states on it which mod will be added depending on the piece of gear it is used on. There are 7 tiers of essences: Whispering, Muttering, Weeping, Wailing, Screaming, Shrieking, and Deafening, with the power of the mods they grant increasing with each tier. Lower tiers of essences can only be applied to normal items, making them into rare items like an alchemy orb. Screaming or higher essences can be applied to an already rare item like a chaos orb to reroll the item, still granting the guaranteed modifier. You may sometimes encounter corrupted essences containing a remnant of corruption. This is a special essence currency that you can use on another essence monster to modify the essences on that enemy. There are 4 possibilities that can occur when you use a remnant of corruption. The crystal can break, releasing the monster immediately. An additional essence can be added to the monster. All essences can have their tier increased, for example, making Screaming into Shrieking, or they can be transformed into the next group of essences. This is fairly easy to understand with the way the Essence tab is laid out. You have the blues, greens, yellows, reds, and purples. These transformed essences will move into that next bracket. Corrupted purple essences that transform will change into one of 4 special essences: Insanity, Horror, Delirium, and Hysteria, that can put very unique mods onto items that cannot be acquired any other way. The tiers of essences can be upgraded to the next tier by trading 3 of the same tier essence to a vendor for 1 of the next tier. This can also be done from within the Essence Stash tab with the upgrade button at the bottom. When selected, all essences that can be upgraded will be highlighted, and when clicked on, will upgrade as many of that essence as possible to the next tier. A Legion monolith can first be encountered in Act 1, but its benefits can only be realized in the endgame. When you interact with the monolith, it will reveal a battle between 2 of 5 possible Legion factions frozen in time. You will have a short duration to break as many enemies, chests, and even bosses out of stasis as possible. Rarer enemies typically spawn further away from the center of the battle. When the timer ends, all enemies you freed will begin attacking the other Legion of enemies, or you. Defeating Legion enemies or opening chests can drop timeless splinters of the faction they represent. Another item unique to Legions can also be found called Incubators. There are various types of incubators that can be applied to the gear you are wearing, and after killing the specified number of monsters, they will drop the item held inside. Incubators can be used to get some items from other pieces of content in the game from running Legion, such as essences, which I just went over. One of the more valuable types of incubators is called the Geomancer's Incubator, which takes more kills to break open, but gives a chest piece with 6 linked sockets. Gathering 100 splinters from a Legion's faction will upgrade into a Timeless Emblem. 2 or more of these Timeless Emblems can be placed in the map device to travel to the Domain of Timeless Conflict, where you can repeatedly kill the unique bosses of each faction included for a chance to find timeless jewels. There is an area in the center you can go into to refresh the arena after bosses are killed to respawn them, though there's a 25-second cooldown from when a boss is killed before it can be respawned again. So you will have to find a rhythm around the arena between killing bosses and resetting the room in order to kill the most amount of bosses you can. The timeless jewels given by each faction have their own identities. When placed in a jewel socket on the passive tree, timeless jewels will alter the passive skills in their radius. The Karui timeless jewel adds strength to all the small passives in its radius, as well as additional mods to notable passives. Timeless jewels can even change keystones into one of 3 different keystones determined by the leader represented on the jewel. The large number on the jewel indicates the seed of the jewel. Any of these jewels with the same number on it will always alter the passives in its radius in the same way. The amount of optimization that can be done with these jewels is insane, and the RNG to get a specific jewel is nearly impossible by yourself. The Eternal Empire jewel makes all small passives grant nothing, and replaces the notable passives with new very strong mods. The Vol jewel corrupts all passives in the radius to give completely different mods. The Templar jewels give 2 random modifiers per 10 devotion, which can then be acquired from the passive skills in the radius. The Mariketh jewel is very similar to the Karui jewel, but adds dexterity instead of strength, and has a different set of mods that can be added to the notable passives. Mariketh is the rarest faction to appear in the Legion conflicts, so these jewels are more difficult to require. There is a lot of depth to Legion. Strongboxes are a much simpler piece of content. These are large chests that are packed full of monsters and can be re-rolled with currency the same way as items. In the upcoming league, there will now be small icons on the strongbox to automatically use currency from your inventory, making them easier to modify. Modifiers on strongboxes can add additional value to the rewards of the strongbox, add monsters to the strongbox, or a number of other dangerous effects. There are various types of strongboxes that can give only weapons, armor, jewelry, currency, divination cards, and even maps. There are also a few unique strongboxes with special encounters and rewards. Rogue Exiles are a variety of unique enemies that use some of the same skills available to players and showcase some of the different microtransactions for skills and armor available in the shop. The unique thing about Rogue Exiles is that when slain, they will always drop at least 1 item for each equipable gear slot, which means they will always drop 2 rings and an amulet. This makes Rogue Exiles one of the best sources of jewelry in the game. Combined with other mechanics, Rogue Exiles can be extremely valuable to farm, and they may even pop out of strongboxes. Tormented Spirits are green ghosts that can randomly appear. They run away from the player, and any enemies they touch as they run will also be provided a buff which increases the quantity and rarity of items they drop. If the Tormented Spirits get close to a rare or unique enemy, they can attach to it, possessing the enemy. This makes the enemy much more dangerous, but much more rewarding. There are many different types of Tormented Spirits that grant different abilities to the enemies they touch or possess, but they all look the same, so they are difficult to distinguish. Multiple Tormented Spirits are capable of possessing the same enemy, potentially making some of the most terrifying enemies you can encounter in the game. Fall side areas begin appearing early through the campaign as side areas that you can enter, and these zones have additional modifiers, making the enemies within more dangerous. At the end of these zones is a unique mini-boss and a Vol vessel you can open once the boss is defeated. All of the items dropped from the vessel will be corrupted, but can contain Vol's skill gems. Vol's skill gems grant both the normal skill as well as an empowered version of the skill that requires souls to use. Souls are gained by killing enemies the same way that flask charges are gained. Once you have enough souls, you can use the empowered version of the skill, which in most cases will also gain all of the effect of the support gems linked to the skill and can be very powerful. Not every skill gem has a Vol version, but these Vol versions of skills can also be acquired by corrupting skill gems. Transfigured skill gems with a Vol version can also be corrupted to give the Vol version of the skill. Later in the campaign and in maps, the Vol vessels will begin to drop sacrifice fragments, each being one of 4 pieces required to access the Apex of Sacrifice, a very dangerous area in which you can fight Atziri, Queen of the Vol. Atziri is a difficult boss with many mechanics, but can drop a bunch of very strong unique items, as well as mortal fragments, one of 4 pieces required to confront an even more difficult version of the boss. Early in Act 2, you will encounter Einhar, who wants your help to capture rare beasts throughout the area. These rare enemies will appear on your minimap with either a yellow icon or a red icon indicating a stronger beast. Yellow bestiary monsters will have an additional modifier granting it new abilities specific to bestiary. The red beast will have 2 of these unique modifiers and will continue to spawn reinforcement enemies as you fight it. Once you defeat all of these enemies, Einhar will invite you to the Menagerie, where you can sacrifice the beasts that you caught to create currency or unique items, among other powerful outcomes. The type of red beast is what determines what crafting ritual you are able to perform. In in-game maps, there are 4 unique beasts that you are able to find that when sacrificed in the bestiary will open a portal to their den, allowing you to fight them. These beasts each have a full set of unique armor with special abilities, and they will give you the ability to craft an aspect on an item. Aspects are special skills that reserve mana for unique buffs. The unique item sets can provide further benefits for the aspect skills. The breach mechanic appears as a red hand sticking out of the ground. When you walk into the hand, a circle begins expanding outwards, revealing hordes of enemies. There are 5 different groups of enemies that may be present: fire, cold, lightning, a rarer physical group, and an even rarer chaos group. There are unique enemies called Breach Lords of each type, which have a very small chance to spawn in the breach as well. Killing monsters in the breach will extend the amount of time the breach will keep expanding before it closes. You may also find small clasped hands sticking out of the ground. Running near them will cause them to open, giving you breach splinters for the enemy type that you are fighting. And now, all of the breach splinters will drop at the end once the breach closes. After collecting 100 splinters of a specific type, you can form a breach stone, which can be put into the map device to run a long linear breach, ending with a boss fight against the respective breach lord, each with their own special unique items they can drop. And they can also drop a blessing, which can be used to upgrade their uniques into more powerful versions. You will first encounter ritual altars in the latter half of Act 2. Monsters will be surrounding the altar with a large white circle around it. After defeating all of the enemies in the circle, the ritual altar can be activated, respawning all of the monsters killed within the circle, this time giving you tribute when you kill them. There will be 3 to 4 of these ritual altars within the zone. Each subsequent ritual altar will also spawn the monsters from the previous encounters. There are 21 different types of ritual altars that will add additional mechanics to contend with while you are fighting the monsters within the rituals. After stacking as much tribute as possible from the ritual altars, you can click the altar again to spend that tribute to get items from the ritual. There is a wide variety of items you may select from the ritual's favors being offered. Hovering over an item will tell you the amount of tribute required to take that item. Rarer items will cost more tribute. If you do not have enough tribute to purchase an item, it will be grayed out, but you can choose to defer this item to a later ritual and pay a portion of the tribute cost now. You can also spend 2,000 tribute to reroll the favors being offered once per ritual to get a second window of items, which may also include your deferred items, allowing them to be deferred again, continuing to lower the cost. In maps, you will be able to start finding ritual splinters, which combine to create a ritual vessel. A ritual vessel can be used to store all of the monsters from a specific ritual altar to bring into a different map by putting it in the map device, and it will add those monsters to the rituals in that map, allowing you to stack even more tribute. If you happen to have a ritual altar on top of a map boss, you can even store the map boss in the ritual vessel and take it into rituals in the map using the blood-filled vessel. There are many items specific to ritual that can only be acquired from this mechanic, mostly being craftable item bases for helmets, boots, and gloves, along with a few ritual-specific unique items and omens. There are various types of omens, some that will heal you or refill your flasks when you reach low life. There is one that prevents some of the experience loss on death, and there are some that can ensure 6 sockets with a jeweler's orb, a 6 link with an orb of fusing, and even guarantee that a chance orb will upgrade an item into a unique. There are also sometimes corpses that can be taken and raised as specters that give unique effects you cannot get from normal enemies in the game. There are special types of rituals that will only offer you unique items, currency, or divination cards as favors. Then, in high-tier maps, you can sometimes encounter the Nameless ritual, which will offer you an item called An Audience with the King, which, when placed in the map device, will take you to fight the King in the Mists. If you have played Path of Exile 2 at all, you should be very familiar with this boss. He has special unique items, including some highly sought-after jewels. The Blight mechanic, first encountered in Act 3, is a tower defense minigame in which you must defend a purification pump from the monsters that approach from the ends of the routes it spawns. You will have a duration to prepare before the Blight starts spawning monsters. You will see indicators on locations where you can build towers using the base resources you start with. Upon selecting the tower, you can choose one of 6 different options to upgrade the tower into. There are fire, cold, lightning, physical, minion, and buffing towers. Once a type of tower is selected, it can further be upgraded with a higher resource cost. A tower can only be upgraded 4 times, and the 4th upgrade will allow you to choose between one of 2 final forms of the tower of that given type. More resources to build towers can be acquired by killing the monsters approaching the purification pump. If monsters get very close to the pump, they can lower its durability and the monster will disappear. Higher rarity of monsters will take more durability off the pump. If the pump is destroyed, the encounter will end. Once all the waves of enemies are defeated, any items dropped by those enemies will drop around the pump all at once. At the ends of the lanes the enemies were coming from will also be some chests that can give a variety of rewards from other content, but most importantly, the Blight-specific rewards, oils. Oils can be used to anoint rings and amulets. On rings, you can anoint buffs to towers for future Blight encounters, but on amulets, you can anoint a notable passive from the passive tree, giving you its effect without having to path to that node on the tree. There are 13 basic tiers of oils increasing rarity. The more valuable notable passives on the tree will require more valuable oils. You can press Alt while hovering over a notable passive on the tree to see what oils are required to anoint that passive. The highest tier of oil, a golden oil, can only be acquired in tier 13 plus maps or by combining 3 silver oils, which are the second highest tier of oil. Similar to essences, to upgrade an oil, you can sell 3 of the same oil to a vendor to receive one of the next tier oils. If you have the Blight Stash tab, you can upgrade the oils in the tab with the upgrade button at the bottom. The Blight Stash tab also contains a spot to place an item and sockets to insert oils to apply and anoint to that item. If you do not have the Blight Stash tab, you can talk to Sister Cassia, who appears in your hideout after you complete your first Blight encounter. Instead of oils from a Blight chest, you may also receive a Blighted map, which can be rolled with mods like any other map, and when opened has a self-contained, much larger Blight encounter that lasts for 5 minutes. Has many more lanes of enemies, and many more locations for towers. You will receive many more rewards from completing a Blighted map than from the normal Blight encounters in maps. Blighted maps are where you may be able to find Blight-specific unique items, which have the special perk that they too are able to be anointed with additional notable passives. Blighted maps can be anointed as well with oils to aid you in the map or provide buffs to your rewards. There are a bunch of unique enemies that can spawn from Blight lanes as well. You will face many of these in Blighted maps. Blighted maps can even drop more difficult Blighted maps called Blight Ravaged maps. These are incredibly difficult and are meant for very well optimized characters. There are a few special oils I should also mention. Reflected oils can only be found in Blighted maps and will allow you to apply and anoint to a mirrored amulet. Prismatic oils can only be found in tier 13 plus Blighted maps and can be used to anoint notable passives that are not normally acquirable on the passive tree. Tainted oils can only be found in blighted maps that have been corrupted with a Vol Orb and will allow you to apply Anoint to a corrupted item. In Act 4, you will encounter Nico, who is looking for veins of sulfite, which you will find in the mines and randomly elsewhere through the rest of the campaign. When clicking a sulfite vein, Nico will appear to mine it. Once you have some sulfite, you will be able to enter the mine encampment from the waypoint or by talking to Nico. From here, you will be able to enter the Azurite mine, an infinite series of tunnels digging deep underground shrouded in darkness. You will use your sulfite to power a minecart with a bright light to protect you from the darkness. There are lots of things you can find in Delve, as seen by all of the nodes on the subterranean chart. To travel to a Delve node, it needs to be connected to the initial mine shaft or another node you have completed. You will need to farm Azurite nodes in the mines to allow you to upgrade your minecart and protect yourself from the darkness. If you venture into the darkness, you will begin taking a stacking damage over time debuff, which can kill you quickly. You can also use Azurite to create flares and dynamite to explore areas the minecart does not go and break down walls, revealing hidden rewards. You can increase the number of flares and dynamite you can carry, you can increase the light radius of flares and the minecart, and you can increase your sulfite capacity, allowing for bigger trips into the Delve. The items specific to Delve you can find are called fossils and resonators. Fossils can be used to roll items by increasing the odds of a type of modifier and lowering the odds of another type of modifier. When fossils are placed into a resonator, they can be used the same way as a chaos orb to reroll the mods of an item, given the weighting of the mods from the fossil being used. There are 2, 3, and much rarer 4-socket resonators in which different types of fossils can be combined to heavily weight the possible outcomes of the item you are trying to craft. Returning to the subterranean chart here, you can see that there are different biomes designated by the background underneath the paths and reward nodes. Each different biome has its own unique set of monsters and node encounters, as well as different types of fossils that can be farmed in those biomes. For example, scorched fossils can be found in the red, fire-themed zones, and frigid fossils can be found in the blue, cold-themed zones. Check the wiki for a full breakdown of which fossils can be found where. There are nodes on the chart that indicate fossils will be rewarded by completing them, which are good for finding miscellaneous fossils. At deeper depths, each biome has a chance to spawn a unique fossil node, which gives much rarer fossils only acquirable from these nodes. Most of the more common fossils can now be found as rewards from other content as well. There are other special nodes that, for example, give lightning items, minion or aura items, mana or curse items, which are specific to each biome. These nodes will reward a handful of fossils of that type along with essences of that type, as well as items with special modifiers that can only be found in Delve, such as the ability to automatically apply a curse on hitting an enemy, for example. There are 3 additional types of biomes commonly referred to as Delve cities, indicated by the gold borders surrounding the biome. There is a city biome that contains Vol monsters, one that contains Abyss monsters, and one that contains Primeval monsters. Each node in a city has an underground area that you can loot to find all kinds of rewarding chests, giving a wide variety of items. Each city biome also has its own unique boss node that has a chance to spawn within the cities, each with their own specific unique rewards, including pieces of rings that can be combined together to make powerful unique rings that give special bonuses to endurance, frenzy, or power charges. Delve is the only content currently in the game that has nearly infinite difficulty scaling the further you go down. There is a lot going on in Delve, and it is very fun to explore. But finally, I will teach you how to determine where to find hidden walls along main paths for extra rewards. You should be able to loosely see that the subterranean chart is organized into a large grid. Each square of the grid can only have one Delve node. For each square on the grid a path travels through that does not contain a reward node, there will be a destructible wall hidden in the darkness off the path the minecart is traveling. Finding and breaking these walls is how you can target farm specific fossil types from each biome. You do not have to always go down in Delve. Going sideways is a common strategy because going down gets extremely difficult. When you run out of Sulfite, you will need to return to maps to find more. In Act 5, you can start finding mirrors of Delirium. When you walk through a Delirium mirror, the zone begins filling with a fog expanding outward from the mirror. The fog will spawn additional enemies as well as empowering existing enemies within the fog. In the bottom left of the screen, a reward icon appears. As you kill enemies in the fog, a bar fills on top of the reward icon, leveling it up. If the reward stacks reach 3, a second reward is added, starting at level 1. If the initial reward reaches level 5, the second reward will be at 3, and a third reward will be added, starting at level 1, and so on. The more stacks of each reward type, the higher the amount of drops of that reward type will be received when the encounter ends. Rare and unique enemies within the fog will receive additional abilities that pauses their normal abilities when these are activated. The further into the fog you travel from the mirror, the more difficult enemies will become. This is based on distance rather than time spent in the fog. After a time, the Delirium fog will begin to dissipate starting from the initial mirror location. Interacting with certain other mechanics will pause or extend the fog timer, encouraging you to still complete other content while it is affected by the Delirium fog. Delirium-specific items are also acquired at the end of the encounter, in addition to the rewards you accrued along the way. These are Simulacrum Splinters, which can be combined to enter an in-game version of the Delirium encounter. A new type of jewel called Cluster Jewels, which can be crafted and used to further specialize your passive tree. And finally, Delirium Orbs, which can apply layers of Delirium to a map, guaranteeing the reward type indicated on the orb. Rarely, special unique enemies can spawn from within the fog, which have a chance to drop special unique Cluster Jewels, which allow you to spec into new Keystone passives when used. There are 3 sizes of Cluster Jewels: small, medium, and large, each with their own set of possible types they spawn with, along with a range of the number of passive points they will add when used. Cluster Jewels can only be placed in the large jewel sockets located around the perimeter of the passive tree. Large Cluster Jewels contain 2 additional sockets in which you can place medium or small Cluster Jewels, or even normal jewels. Medium Cluster Jewels contain 1 additional socket for a small Cluster Jewel. Large Cluster Jewels cannot be socketed into smaller Cluster Jewels. You can apply up to 5 Delirium Orbs to a single map, each one applying its reward type and increasing the level of Delirium by 20%. Each additional level of Deliriousness increases damage enemies deal and also gives them a reduction to damage taken. The wiki has a nice table explaining what the various levels of Delirium will do. 100% Delirious maps are extremely difficult to say the least, as are the final waves of the Simulacrum, which also applies 100% Delirium. A variety of extremely powerful, unique jewels can be obtained from the Simulacrum. Heist is another piece of content like Delve that mostly exists outside of maps. In Act 6 is the first time you can encounter a Smuggler's Cache, which will contain a heist contract and a stack of Rogue's Markers. Rogue's Markers are a type of currency used specifically for heist. Right-clicking a Rogue's Marker in town or your hideout will open a portal to the Rogue Harbor. Once you have traveled here once, you will then be able to access the harbor from a waypoint. There are a lot of facets to Heist that I am going to brush over quickly here. By talking to Adia, the Wayfinder, you can open a heist contract provided you have enough Rogue's Markers to pay for travel and pay the heist member you need to select to bring along to perform a job to complete the heist, such as unlocking doors, blowing up walls, or crawling through vents. There are 9 different heist members, each with their own specialties for a few of the 9 possible jobs. Each different job has different type of rewards associated with it, and there are 9 different heist locations containing 1 of 4 different subset of enemies. Each heist member has unique personalities and specialized dialogue, as well as story contracts found from Smuggler's Caches as you progress through the game. You can gear up your heist members with special gear you can only find from running heist contracts. By running heist contracts with each member, you can level them up, making them more efficient at completing their different jobs, allowing them to go on more difficult missions. There is a heist locker in the harbor that holds all of your heist contracts. There is a checkbox in the bottom right to enable the heist locker affinity, which allows any heist contracts dumped in your stash to be automatically placed in the heist locker. The goal for running a heist contract is to collect a relic locked in the depths of this zone. At the bottom of the screen is an alert level meter. If this meter is filled, the area will go into lockdown after a short time and prevent you from collecting the relic. On the minimap, you can see any chests that are in the area. Some of these chests are larger and are in locked rooms designated by the reward icons shown, telling you what type of item is in each of the large chests. Opening chests as you progress through the zone will increase the alert level. You might not be able to loot everything before the alert level caps out. Any items looted in the heist contract are labeled as contraband, and you will not be able to identify or use them until you flee the zone with them. If you die in the area, any contraband items you were holding are dropped on the ground. If the alert meter has been filled, the portal is closed and all contraband items are permanently lost. To direct your heist member companion to open a door or chest, there's a large icon you can click and they will begin the job. There is also a hotkey you can press to activate the closest interactable chest or door defaulted to V. When you take the relic at the end of the zone, the area will enter lockdown regardless of how high you have raised the alert level, and as you make your exit, many more enemies will spawn. You can carefully fight your way out or make a dash for the exit, though some doors may have been closed behind you. If you escape with the relic, you can sell it to Faustus, the Fence, for a helping of Rogue's Markers. Also, for completing the heist, you gain a blueprint reveal from Wakano. Blueprints are a larger type of heist that requires more prep work. Heist blueprints have multiple wings and many rewards, but if you want to access any of them, you have to reveal them. You need available reveals and Rogue's Markers to pay to reveal them. Completing heist contracts with Gianna or Niles will give you discounted blueprint reveals in addition to the one you receive from Wakano. Revealing wings is more costly than revealing reward rooms, so using these members can cut down on the cost. After revealing the wings and any reward rooms you want, you have to plan the blueprint. There is a separate planning room with a table you can use to do this. Here you can select 3 members to go into each wing. The gear bonuses applied to each heist member in the wing will stack together, allowing you to stack more alert level reduction and job speed. Once you confirm the plans, you can return to Adia and select Prepare Grand Heist to embark. In the entryway, you can see the access points for each of the wings you reveal. Each reward room in the blueprint will contain 2 of the reward chests of that given type. So if you reveal too many reward rooms, you will not be able to open them all without triggering the lockdown. Rather than a relic to take at the end of a blueprint wing, you will be able to select one of 5 options, ranging from stacks of currency, trinkets to augment drops from heists, items with special enchants, heist-specific weapon base types, replica uniques, extremely rare heist-specific jewelry bases, and special orbs that can be used to apply enchants to weapons or body armors. Heist can be very rewarding, but the ends of the blueprint wings can be extremely rewarding. Once you escape a wing, you are free to return to the harbor to dump any items and can return for the remaining wings. Beginning in Act 6, you will begin encountering Kalgurans on an expedition to Rayclass searching for treasures from their ancestors. Marked around the area are the locations of chests and enemies. Your goal is to place a chain of 5 explosives that will reveal the chests and enemies when detonated. There are also remnants around the area that will provide buffs to enemies in exchange for increased rewards for the remaining explosives in the chain. These only go forwards, not backwards. This means that remnants detonated further down the chain will not affect the enemies and chests unearthed by the previous explosions. There are both small and large enemy markers. The large enemy markers represent the runic monsters with regard to the rewards offered by the remnants. You will need to be careful when placing the explosives not to detonate a remnant that could make enemies immune to the type of damage you deal. The Kalguran enemies have a new defensive layer called Ward, which is very similar to Energy Shield protecting their life pool. But, unlike Energy Shield, it is restored after a cooldown regardless of whether or not it has taken damage recently. Expedition enemies can also drop new item bases for gloves, boots, and helmets that grant ward as a defense instead of armor, evasion, or energy shield. Killing the unearthed enemies and opening chests will give you pieces of currency relative to each of the 4 Kalguran NPCs encountered in these expeditions. Each of these currencies can be used for different purposes and is stored automatically. There is another type of currencies dropped referred to as vendor refresh currencies. In the Act 6 town or in your hideout, you can find the Expedition Locker, which has an affinity checkbox like the Heist chest, allowing these currencies and logbooks to be stored here when dumped into your stash. Gwynen's currency is used to gamble for items from a selection of base types in her trade window. You can get magic, rare, or unique items of the base items you purchase at random. If there are no item bases you are interested in, you can use Astragali to reroll her selection of item bases for a new batch. Pretty simple. Tujin is the haggler. He will offer you a selection of currency and other items with a listed price. When selecting an item you want, you can choose to offer less for that item by haggling. Exotic coinage can be used to refresh the window. Rog is the dealer. He will offer you a selection of identified items, and if something catches your eye, you can choose to buy it, and you will then be offered crafting options that you can spend further artifacts on, attempting to make the item better. It still requires some luck, but you can craft some incredibly powerful items from Rog. His inventory can be rerolled with scrap metal. Lastly, Danig is the leader of the bunch, and you can use his currency artifacts to exchange for artifacts used by the others, offering some at a discount, along with the ability to purchase vendor refresh currency for the others. He will sometimes offer expedition logbooks as well. These logbooks can also be acquired from the normal expedition encounters. Logbooks are a larger version of the expedition mechanic, very similar to blighted maps. When talking to Danig, you can choose to show expedition map and place a logbook into the window that pops up. From here, you will be able to choose one of the expedition locations indicated by the logbook. These have implicit modifiers increasing the rewards you might gain from running them, and these can have mods crafted on them as well. There is a specific boss that may be present in each of the faction's logbooks that has their own ward-related unique items that can drop. Inside the logbook, you will be able to see all of the remnant and chest locations on the minimap, and you have many more explosives to place than the normal expedition encounters. The effects of remnants here will also cascade to all further detonated monsters and chests, and by the end of the chain, can add a lot of value to those monsters and chests. There are also underground areas that you can enter if you detonate the entrances along the chain. All enemies and chests inside the underground areas will also be affected by the previous remnants. This goes for bosses as well. You can make them super dangerous and rewarding, or put them early in the chains of explosives. There are also secret areas you can detonate in many of the logbook areas. You can spend a lot of time to plan out the perfect route of explosives to maximize the rewards, or throw them all over the place and whatever happens, happens. Abyss is another fairly simple mechanic. An abyss is marked by a green and black area on the ground, which when walked through, a crack will begin traveling along the ground, spawning monsters, eventually stopping, creating a larger pit that will spew even more monsters. After killing enough monsters from the pit, the crack will begin traveling again, leading to another pit. After 2 to 4 of these pits, usually an abyssal trove will sprout from the ground. From these troves, you will find abyss jewels. There are 4 types of abyss jewels. Hypnotic eye jewels can roll spell modifiers, murderous eye jewels roll melee weapon modifiers, searching eye jewels can roll bow and wand modifiers, and ghastly eye jewels can roll minion mods. These jewels can be crafted and placed in any jewel sockets on the passive tree as another option to the normal jewels. Sometimes, at the last node of the abyss, a Stygian spire can spawn that will create more pits around the areas, spawning even more monsters. After destroying the spire, a new belt base will be dropped called a Stygian vise. This is a belt with an abyssal socket in which you can place one of these abyss jewels. Another event that can happen is that the last pit can create the Abyssal Depths, an area you can travel into where you can find unique bosses that can drop unique abyss jewels and unique gear that contains abyssal sockets in the place of one or more of the normal possible gem sockets. In Act 7, you will first encounter Alva, an explorer searching for the lost temple of Atsuatl. She will send you on an incursion through time into a room of the lost temple. In the incursion, you will have the choice of killing one of 2 unique architects, allowing the surviving architect to upgrade that room in the temple. The trip is timed, and you can gain more time by killing enemies in the incursion. At least one enemy in the incursion will drop a Stone of Passage, which can be used to open a door connecting the room to another in the temple. Alva gives you a preview of the room you are entering before each incursion, allowing you to select which architect you want to destroy, or which door you want to try to unlock. You have 12 incursions to build out the temple as you see fit. There are 3 tiers of each possible room with different rewards, and they often provide additional modifiers to the enemies throughout the temple. Some tier 3 rooms will have chests which give pieces of gear with special mods relative to the architect who is responsible for upgrading that room. Sometimes these chests will also drop unique items that can only be acquired from those chests. The boss at the peak of the temple will drop a random selection of items with these special modifiers. The boss can also occasionally drop vials that can be used to upgrade the incursion-specific unique items in the Tier 3 Apex of Ascension room. There are 2 highly sought-after incursion rooms, one being a gem room that at Tier 3 allows you to double corrupt a gem. A Vol Orb can only corrupt an item once. This room can corrupt a gem twice. Corrupting gems can turn the gem into Vol versions if one exists, raise the level of the gem by 1, lower the level by 1, or increase or decrease the quality of the gem. This has a chance to turn a max level 20 gem with 20% quality into a level 21 gem with 23% quality. You have to get lucky though. There are better odds at getting a level 21 gem from the gem corruption room than through a Vol Orb. The other room is the Locus of Corruption. This room allows you to double corrupt an item. There are 4 outcomes. The item is completely rerolled, often making it unusable. All sockets on the item are turned to white. The item gains 2 corrupted implicit modifiers, or the item poofs and disappears completely. This is the ultimate gamble for extremely valuable items, and this room is a constant provider of clips of players destroying these valuable items. One of the incursion rooms will add a Tempest to the temple. Tempest was once a league mechanic in Path of Exile, but now mainly exists in the Temple of Atsuatl. These appear as large circles on the ground, and after a short duration, they will apply a buff or debuff to any player or enemy standing inside the circle when they disappear. There are only a handful of these left in the game, but to name a few, there are Tempests that can cause all items enemies drop to be corrupted, give you increased item rarity and quantity, reduce your character's size, causing you to deal less damage and take more damage, and one causing you or enemies to always deal critical strikes. You can first encounter the Trial Master in Act 7 alongside an altar known as the Ultimatum mechanic. Here you will see an item being offered you can receive if you complete a round of the Ultimatum mechanic. There are 4 different Ultimatum mechanics, one which requires you to stay alive for a duration, one which requires you to kill enemies, one which requires you to protect the altar from enemies, and one which requires you to stand in circles around the altar for a short duration. To activate the encounter, you must select one of 3 dangerous abilities to add to the encounter. There are 10 rounds to the Ultimatum. After successfully completing a round, the game pauses, allowing you to add another mod to the encounter for the next reward being offered. Or you can take the rewards you have acquired and leave, though the Trial Master is sure to taunt you for doing so. After a few rounds, you are likely to be offered Catalysts, a currency type that allows you to apply quality to rings, amulets, and belts, allowing you to increase the effect of applicable mods rolled on the items by up to 20%. Ultimatum is the primary source of acquiring catalysts in the game. If you venture too far away from the altar, you will be given 5 seconds to return into the ring, or you fail the encounter, losing all collected rewards. If you die, you also lose all rewards. If you make it all the way to round 10, there is a small chance you can fight the Trial Master, giving you one of the special unique items only dropped by him. The other items specific to ultimatums are inscribed ultimatums. These are larger ultimatum encounters with predetermined mods in which you can sacrifice an item or currency to get another item or double the currency back. These can be very deadly or impossible for your build because you cannot choose the ultimatum mods included on them, but maybe the reward is worth the risk. In Act 9, you will first encounter the Betrayal mechanic. You help an NPC named Jun to disrupt the Immortal Syndicate's activities to gain intelligence on the Syndicate's safe houses. There are 4 types of encounters. Transportation, where Immortal Syndicate members are escorting a caravan from one location to another. Defeat them before they complete their mission. Fortification has members defending a fortified encampment. You must destroy the fort's doors to make your way inside and defeat the Syndicate members. Research requires you to go into an underground laboratory where scientists will begin trying to destroy research. You must kill the Immortal Syndicate members before too much research is destroyed, and you can delay this by killing the scientists. The intervention encounter is when Immortal Syndicate members are sent to assassinate you, randomly hopping out of the shadows. Defeating them completes the encounter. Upon completing one of the missions, any defeated Syndicate members can then be interrogated, which brings up the information board showing you what you know about the current Syndicate members. For each member, you have 3 options. You can interrogate the member, imprisoning them for 3 betrayal missions, as Jun extracts intelligence from them, which causes them to decrease in rank. You can release them, which has no effect on the investigation, or you can choose a third option which can vary, convincing the member to move to a different job, befriend or become allies with other members indicated by green or red lines on the investigation board. You can bargain with them for items, or you can kill them, increasing their rank. After deciding what to do with a certain Syndicate member, the options on any remaining members will likely change, so you can check them all first and pick the option you most desire. After you have gathered enough intelligence to find a Syndicate safe house, you can speak to Jun to organize a raid on that safe house. All members currently participating in that job will be present in the final room of the zone, and you must defeat them all. Each member present will have a room you can then loot in the safe house. The loot in the room is specific to the member, as well as which branch of the Syndicate they are in, as well as the rank of the member for that job. So you can attempt to move members around to specific jobs in order to get them into the safe houses in which you want the rewards that they will provide. Small clues about what rewards they will have in their safe house will be indicated under their pictures on the interrogation board. Secrets of the Atlas is bringing a rework to the rewards each member provides, so we will not know, as of yet, the best places to put each member. There are 17 different Syndicate members to try to organize into the 4 jobs, so there is a lot of optimization that can be done to get the most valuable rewards from Betrayal. Syndicate members will often drop veiled items which have a sealed mod on them. Right-clicking a veiled item in your inventory will allow you to choose one of 3 mods to replace the veiled mod with. These used to unlock crafting bench recipes as well, but those are now found as you explore maps. There are Betrayal-specific uniques for each of the different safe houses and may be dropped by the safe house leader. The safe house leader may now drop a Syndicate medallion used to confront the Immortal Syndicate's mastermind in search of their unique items and all flame members, which can be used in the map device to replace the monsters present in a map. There are also special currency items that can add veiled modifiers to items. In Act 10, you will encounter an NPC named Divinia in the town, who sends you on a quest to find a tome that can be used to access the Forbidden Sanctum. This is a roguelite system in the game, which was the precursor to Path of Exile 2's Trial of the Sekimas system that is used to ascend. It works exactly the same way, but things are named a bit differently. There are 4 floors of 8 rooms you can go through to reach the boss of the floor. You start the Sanctum with an amount of resolve determined by your character's defenses. When you are hit by an enemy attack, you will lose resolve, and if you run out of resolve, the run will end. The possible rewards offered for completing a room can be chests of Aureus coins that can be used to purchase boons from a merchant. There are fountains that can restore your resolve, some that grant boons aiding your run, and some that will cause afflictions hindering your run. Some rooms will give you an offering of currency that you can choose to take immediately at the end of the current floor or at the end of the final floor. You will get larger currency rewards by deferring them to the end of the Sanctum, but if you do not make it to the end, you will lose any deferred rewards. You can find relics from Sanctum enemies that you can place into the relic altar at the beginning of a run to provide additional benefits. However, unlike in Path of Exile 2, there is no resistance mod that can roll on relics. Therefore, to do well in the Sanctum, you have to not get hit by enemy attacks, which will take some learning to do. There is nothing special to Sanctum that can be used outside of Sanctum aside from unique items that can drop off the floor 4 boss, and as rewards for completing challenge runs of the Sanctum given by unique relics that also are dropped by the floor 4 boss. The only other thing you can gain from Sanctum is currency orbs, all of which can be obtained elsewhere. Once you reach the endgame and run your first map from Kirac, he will show up in your hideout. You will be able to purchase additional maps from Kirac as well as complete Kirac missions. He will offer you a handful of maps that you can run with a goal to complete additional content in the map. There is no reward for completing the goal of the mission. This is rather just a free map you can run. In maps, you will begin to find a new type of currency called Scouting Reports, which can be used to re-roll the selection of maps offered by Kirac for his missions. Explorer's Scouting Reports will prioritize maps on the Atlas in which you have not completed the bonus objective. Singular Scouting Reports will guarantee an offering of a unique map. Vol Scouting Reports will offer you a selection of corrupted maps. There are other Scouting Reports which only have a chance to drop if you spec into passives on the Atlas passive tree, which can offer blighted maps, breachstones, or delirious maps. After opening a map from a Kirac mission, the inventory of maps you can purchase from him will reroll, and this is a great way to find maps you have not yet found while progressing your Atlas. Harbingers are enemies that you will only encounter in maps. However, you cannot damage the Harbingers themselves. They will summon waves of enemies and are defeated upon killing enough of these spawned enemies. Harbingers drop shards of currency, including a few types introduced by the Harbinger League. Engineer's Orbs can add quality to strongboxes. Horizon Orbs can change a map to another of the same map tier. Harbinger Orbs can upgrade a map to a map of the next highest tier, with a chance to upgrade the map into a unique beachhead map. Annulment Orbs are used to remove a single random mod from an item. Lastly, Fracturing Orbs are by far the rarest and can fracture a mod on an item, applying it to the item permanently. When using other methods to reroll the item, the fractured modifier will remain unchanged. Many of these currency orbs have been introduced into the base game, such as Horizon Orbs and Annulment Orbs, but Harbingers are still the best way to find them. Fractured items can also drop on the ground as normal loot with a random fractured modifier. This is not a Harbinger-specific feature, but it felt like the best place to mention it. The Beachhead unique maps can be run to find shards of Harbinger-specific unique items that can be combined into the full unique once all of its pieces are found. The harvest mechanic can only be found in in-game maps with the appearance of a portal into the Sacred Grove. Here you will find plots of plants around the area represented by 3 colors: pink, yellow, and blue. You must choose between one of 2 plots to harvest, and monsters will sprout from the crops, which may drop life force, which can be used to craft items. There are 4 tiers of enemies represented by the harvest seeds, which will be visible when you select a plot to harvest. Higher tier enemies drop life force in greater quantities. Tier 4 seeds are very rare unique enemies that will drop a large amount of life force. Each have a special unique item they can drop, and they may also drop a Sacred Blossom, allowing you to fight the Avatar of the Grove to obtain a crystallized life force used for more advanced harvest crafting options, among other special unique items. In your hideout, you can use the Hoarder crafting station for a variety of crafting options provided by spending a specific amount of life force. The most basic of these allows you to reroll an item, guaranteeing at least one modder of the specified type. There are options to convert Del Fossils, Blight Oils, Ultimatum Catalysts, Essences, Legion Splinters, Breach Splinters, and Delirium Orbs into another of the same type. There are crafting options that will allow you to change an Elemental Resistance mod on an item into another at the same tier. There are crafts to convert boss fragments into others you may be missing, and the ability to gamble divination cards, receiving between 0 to double the amount of the sacrificed cards. There are body armor and weapon enchantments, and finally the more advanced crafts, which require the crystallized life force. Beyond is a mechanic only accessible in the endgame that causes additional enemies to spawn from beyond if you slay a bunch of enemies close together. This is identical to the corruption mechanic in Path of Exile 2's endgame. The same enemies and the same bosses will be able to spawn from beyond. However, in Path of Exile 1, you can acquire a new type of currency from these enemies called Tainted Currency. that will allow you the ability to modify corrupted items. These tainted currencies will give you the opportunity to increase the quality of corrupted items, as well as increase or decrease the number of sockets or linked sockets. The Tainted Mythic Orb can upgrade a corrupted item into a unique or destroy it, which is valuable if seeking a specific unique item with a specific corrupted implicit modifier. The Settlers of Kalgur mechanic is being reworked and added to the base game a few days after I made this video, so I will not have all of the specifics here, but I will share what I know. Once you reach the endgame, you will start being able to find ore deposits, which you can flag to be mined by miners from Kingsmarch. In Kingsmarch, you can use gold to hire workers to farm crops, mine ore, smelt ore into bars, and sailors to ship these resources to other ports for rewards. There are Karui ports, which can return tattoo items, which can be used to alter nodes on your passive tree, and Kalguran ports, which can return rune grafts, which will allow you to alter a mastery passive on the skill tree. Any other rewards will depend on the types of materials you ship, as well as the location they are sent to. There are a few other features allowing you to recruit workers to disenchant items into dust, which you can also ship or make use of the Recombinator. The Recombinator is a very powerful crafting tool in which you can input multiple similar items in an attempt to combine powerful mods from each onto the same item. In Kingsmarch, you may also recruit mappers, which you can supply with maps, and they will run them for you, bringing you back rewards from the maps they run. Upon entering your first yellow map, tier 6 through 10, you will first encounter the Maven, who appears to witness you fighting the map boss while also providing them extra buffs. After witnessing enough bosses, you will be invited into the Maven's arena to fight all witness bosses at the same time. This mechanic progresses as you push deeper into the endgame, eventually allowing you to witness 10 bosses to bring into the Maven Invitation. At this point, allowing you to acquire Crescent Splinters, which will combine into an item, allowing you to fight the Maven, one of the pinnacle bosses of the game. You will also be able to bring Maven along to witness other in-game bosses or some even more challenging invitations. Also in yellow maps, you will first encounter orbs that will allow you to bring Eater of Worlds influence or Searing Exarch influence into maps. You may only choose one of these three options, including Maven, into a map indicated by buttons at the bottom of the map device. If choosing either Eater or Exarch influence, you may begin to find Eldritch Altars, allowing you to gain special rewards while buffing enemies or the boss. Each of these influences comes with a new currency type that can add implicit mods onto non-unique helmets, boots, gloves, and body armors. Running higher tiers of maps with these influences is how you progress to another two of the game's pinnacle bosses. Should you reach tier 14 to 16 maps, you will be able to begin finding maps which will take you to fight precursors of the 4 other pinnacle bosses. There are 4 Shaper Guardians, which will drop fragments to access the Shaper, 4 Elder Guardians, which will drop fragments to access the Elder, the 4 Conquerors of the Atlas, the Redeemer, the Crusader, the Hunter, and the Warlord, that will drop fragments to access the Awakener of Worlds. In these Guardian and Conqueror maps, you may find some of the 6 types of influenced items, each allowing new types of modifiers to appear on those items. The last of the pinnacle bosses, the Cortex, is found in a map that can drop off the bosses of the 4 different synthesis maps. In synthesis maps, you can find synthesized items, which have from 1 to 3 random implicit modifiers. In tier 16 plus maps only, there are a few other mechanics that can spawn. Affliction, a pit into the ground spawning at the beginning of a map, allowing you to run through an area collecting wisps that will be released back into the map, empowering enemies and increasing rewards. Sentinels, an item you can pick up and activate to add additional rewards to the enemies they empower. The Fractured Mirror can randomly spawn and offer you 2 options of a mirrored ring or amulet that have had the modifiers roughly doubled, and some of them made negative. The positive mods on one item will be the negative mods on the other, as they are opposites. You can only take one. The Nameless Seer can randomly spawn and will allow you to take one of a collection of unique items. Tier 16 maps have a chance when dropped to be upgraded into a Tier 17 map. a special tier of map with new modifiers and extremely difficult bosses. Defeating these bosses will give you splinters needed to access even more difficult versions of the pinnacle bosses. Lastly, I will describe the new Secrets of the Atlas expansion mechanic I have not gotten to play with yet. In high tier maps, you will be able to find memory tears from which a new NPC, Egan, can extract a memory thread. The memory thread will appear on the Atlas, indicating a series of maps that can be run by interacting with Egan in your hideout as you search for the source of the stream of consciousness, which will bring you to one of 3 new pinnacle bosses. In these memory maps, you will find monsters imbued with memory petals, and when defeated, the petals transfer to your character, allowing you to use new abilities. From the new pinnacle bosses, you can receive new unique items and memory-influenced maps, in which you can find items with memory strands applied to them, increasing the efficacy of crafting currencies on these items. There are also new currency items which can manipulate the memory strands on items. I am very excited to experience and experiment with these new mechanics. There we go. That is a basic summary of all of the different content in the game, and I made sure not to show any of the boss fights here for new players who may want to experience them for themselves for the first time. I also did not dig into how the Atlas passive tree may be used to augment any of the content in the game, as well as the uses for any of the Scarabs that interact with the League mechanics. There is plenty to explore beyond what I've described here, and I did my best to be as thorough as possible. But to be honest, there is a ton of stuff in the game, and I am sure there are little things I missed here and there. Nonetheless, I hope this video has proven useful to new players to gain a basic understanding of the game and the content that lies within. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have in the comments below. To wrap up, here I will also include information about some valuable third-party tools and websites available for you to dig in even further. Firstly, the Path of Exile wiki, poewiki.net, is the community-created wiki for the game and has pages explaining everything I discussed in this video in further detail and much more, as I did not talk at all about different skill gems or the effects of unique items. All of this information can be found on the wiki. Next, I want to share Path of Exile. craftofexile.com. This is a useful tool that will list all of the possible mods that can roll on any item base in the game, including the tiers of the mods and item level thresholds to acquire certain mods. I am constantly referencing this website in my videos as I attempt to craft items. There is a lot of depth to the website, including the ability to import items from the game and simulate what certain crafting options would do to that item. Very valuable. Poe.ninja is a website that displays the character builds for players in the top 15,000 on the game's ladder for each of the different league specifications, allowing you to look at other players' gear, gems, and passive trees to see what they are doing. Also, Poe.ninja gathers information about the value that items are being traded for. This is not the greatest way to research what to sell an item for. You would want to actually use the trade site to see items that are currently listed, but this is a great way to determine quickly if an item is valuable and see how prices are fluctuating over time, which can happen drastically early in a league. PoeLab.com is a website which is updated daily with the layout of the labyrinth layouts, which will show you the fastest path through the lab, where you can find dark shrines, gauntlets, and puzzles for additional treasure keys, as well as the configuration of Izaro and what additional buffs are present in each of the boss rooms. Suit Size Small is a hero of the Path of Exile community who has been updating the lab layouts as close to daily as humanly possible for like 8 years. Next up is filterblade.xyz, a website created by popular loot filter maker Neversink. On this website, you can sign in through the Path of Exile website and save filters directly to your account, or you can download them and add them to the game files folder manually. There are 7 variations of the loot filter with varying strictness levels that you can customize to your liking if you really want to dig into things. For the basics, if I want to download the filters, I can select between a few presets which have considerations for the softcore and hardcore economies, or a stable filter updated by hand. With a button at the bottom, you can choose styles and sounds to select different color styling options if you prefer. Then you can choose to export to PoE at the top to save them to your PoE account, or continue without saving. Then you can select download all strictnesses as a zip file or the individual files, and all 7 variations of the filter will be downloaded. Then you will need to move these files on your computer from your downloads folder into the documents/my games/Path of Exile folder, and then you will be able to select the different filters from the options menu in-game. Path of Building is an offline build planner tool updated by members of the community that many players use to share and optimize their builds. Build makers will often share codes that can be imported into POB by pasting the code into the Import-Export Build section. This will allow you to see the passive tree, skills used, items, in-depth details about how things are calculated, and the configuration, allowing you to see how much damage you can actually output under certain conditions. That concludes this beginner's guide to Path of Exile. I detail my entire journey through each Path of Exile league here on my YouTube channel, often trying wacky off-meta build ideas in a solo self-found environment. If you would like to follow along with my adventures in Path of Exile, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. With every new build I make, I detail all of the campaign progression in my new build videos, if you are looking for some build inspiration. I post more consistent Path of Exile YouTube videos than almost any other creator on the platform, and we are always relaxing, exploring new things, and having a good time. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.